You didn't raise your voice. You didn't throw a punch. You just stood there, calm, composed, unshaken, and suddenly they're calling you Gangster. Funny, isn't it? The same people who mocked you when you were quiet now flinch at your calm. The same ones who thought your patience was weakness are trembling because they finally realized it was precision. You didn't need to rage. You didn't need to prove. You just stayed classy while they panicked, and that's what scared them the most. Because there's nothing more terrifying than a person who can burn the world down, but chooses not to. See, they expected chaos from you. They built their stories around your breaking point. They wanted you to react, to beg, to explode, so they could say, "See? Told you they were unstable, but you didn't give them that satisfaction, did you?" You smiled, you straightened your suit, you said nothing, and that silence felt like violence. You mastered what they could never understand, control, the kind of control that makes people question reality itself. The kind that turns every insult into evidence of your superiority. You see, classy isn't about appearance. It's about discipline. It's the art of making destruction look elegant. It's sipping your drink slowly while the room loses composure. It's watching your enemies self-destruct and knowing you don't have to lift a finger, because truth will always do it for you. They thought gangster meant loud. They thought it meant violence, chaos, intimidation. No gangster is walking into a room full of people who tried to break you and smiling like you own the air they're breathing. Gangster is refusing to stoop to their level, because your level is a view, not a pit. You're not dangerous because you're loud. You're dangerous because you're composed. They called you cold. You call it peace. They called you arrogant. You call it boundaries. They called you scary. You call it self-control. You didn't fight dirty. You let time do the fighting. You didn't argue. You let results speak your language. You didn't get revenge. You let their own guilt finish the job. And now, they whisper your name differently. There's hesitation. There's tension. There's that little flicker of fear behind the fake smiles. They're trying to figure out what changed, and they can't. Because you didn't change. You just stopped bleeding for free. You became immune to chaos. You became fluent in detachment. You realized that reacting gives away energy. And you finally learned how to conserve yours. That's what real power looks like. Not noise, stillness, not rage, restraint. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't break the way they expect. They can't handle someone who smiles through betrayal, who laughs through manipulation, who carries elegance like a blade hidden in a handshake. You've mastered the paradox. You can be kind without being soft, forgiving without being foolish, calm without being conquered. You are the walking contradiction they never saw coming. The saint with the psychopath's composure, the angel with a demon's patience. You don't need to fight for dominance anymore. You are dominance. Because you learned that unpredictability isn't about chaos. It's about emotional control. You are the storm that learned how to sit still. The volcano that learned not to erupt. Because even dormant, you terrify the world. They're panicking now because they can't read you. You became a mystery, and mysteries make insecure people unravel. They can't manipulate someone who doesn't flinch. They can't disarm someone who's already accepted loss as a teacher. They can't destroy someone who's already comfortable walking through the fire. You've become untouchable. And that's why they call you Gangster. Because deep down, they know it's not the guns or the threats that make someone dangerous. It's composure under chaos. When they insulted you, you smiled. When they betrayed you, you said thank you. When they doubted you, you stayed silent. And now that silence is echoing in every room they enter. That's elegance turned lethal. That's grace used as a weapon. That's what happens when pain graduates into power. And here's the secret they'll never admit. They didn't hate your confidence. They hated the mirror it held up. You exposed their instability by staying still. You exposed their weakness by showing restraint. You didn't shout. You didn't compete. You just existed, and existence at your level is confrontation enough. You don't seek validation anymore. You are validation. You don't chase revenge. You embody it. You don't fight fire with fire. You watch fire exhaust itself trying to burn you, and then you walk through the ashes in white. They call you Gangster because they can't call you what you really are, evolved. They can't label calm as power. They can't process grace as dominance. They can't understand that silence, when sharpened by pain, cuts deeper than any blade. You stayed classy while they panicked. You smiled while they scrambled. You watched them expose themselves trying to expose you. You watched their hands shake while yours stayed steady. That's power, darling. Not dominance over others, dominance over yourself. They used to laugh at you. Now they mimic you. They used to gossip about you. Now they study you. They used to test your limits. Now they walk on eggshells near your name. You went from underestimated to untouchable, from polite to poised, from invisible to inevitable. And all you did was refuse to lose your elegance in a room full of animals. You don't need to prove that you're strong. Your calm already terrifies them. You don't need to prove you're dangerous. Your composure already declares it. So stay exactly like this, still, sharp, unbothered. Let them call it Gangster, because in a world addicted to chaos, grace is the loudest form of rebellion. They can't stand it, can they? The way you walk into a room without saying a word, and every heartbeat forgets its rhythm. The way your silence drags their insecurities into the light. The way your calmness doesn't just settle the air, it commands it. They don't understand it, so they label it Gangster. Because what else do you call someone who never needed to shout to make the walls tremble? You didn't raise your hand, yet their reputations started falling apart. You didn't expose them, yet their guilt started leaking through every forced smile. You didn't even play their game, and somehow you won it. That's the kind of power that terrifies small minds. Grace under pressure. You're the paradox they can't decode. You look calm, but they can sense the violence beneath it, the discipline that took years to perfect. You smile, but your eyes don't blink when someone crosses a line. You're too polite to be predictable, too composed to be controlled. They call it arrogance, but it's really just clarity. See, they expected you to crumble. They built entire narratives around your failure. They practiced their speeches for when you'd finally snap. They were ready for your breakdown, your outburst, your fall from grace. But instead, you showed up calm. You walked through the fire in a tailored suit. You didn't flinch. You didn't explain. You didn't defend. And that's when the panic started. Because when you don't play the victim, the villain loses their power. When you stay classy in a room built on chaos, everyone realizes who the real danger is. You didn't fight their lies. You outlasted them. You didn't match their energy. You made their chaos look cheap. You didn't chase revenge. You let your peace haunt them. That's why they talk about you like that now. Gangster, cold, unbothered. Words born from fear, not hate. Because nothing unsettles a coward like someone who can't be provoked. They call you dangerous because they can't predict you. They call you mysterious because they can't manipulate you. They call you heartless because your empathy finally learned self-respect. But you know the truth. You're not heartless. You're healed. You're not arrogant. You're aware. You're not detached. You're done explaining. You mastered the art of emotional elegance. You learned how to weaponize a restraint. You learned that silence can kill louder than screaming ever could. Because when you stay calm while others panic, you turn into something supernatural, a mirror. And people don't hate mirrors for what they are. They hate them for what they show. That's what you've become, the reflection they can't escape. You don't even have to confront them. Your existence does it for you. They see you thriving, composed, glowing, and suddenly they remember every time they doubted you, every time they underestimated you, every time they whispered your name with sarcasm, and now it's trembling in admiration. They're panicking because they know what you could do if you ever decided to stop being graceful. Because calm people are dangerous. They've already mastered what chaos fears: control. You didn't destroy anyone. You just stopped destroying yourself for them. You didn't humiliate anyone. You just stopped letting them rewrite your story. You didn't get revenge. You just let the truth marinate long enough to taste like justice. And now they're nervous because they realize your peace is permanent. They realize nothing they do can shake your center anymore. They realize you're not competing. You're orbiting above the game. You walk different now. Every step is deliberate. Every word is measured. Every look is loaded. You've become that rare kind of person whose silence feels like a sermon and whose calm feels like a warning. They call you Gangster, but you're something far more dangerous. You're evolved. You've reached that untouchable frequency where you don't need validation to move, and you don't need closure to heal. You've learned that the most powerful response to chaos is composure, and they can't replicate that. They can copy your style, your smile, your tone, but they'll never copy your equilibrium. Because that balance was bought with pain. It was earned in the dark. It was built from every betrayal you never exposed, every insult you never answered, every loss you turned into leverage. That's what class really is. It's survival, disguised as elegance. It's power wrapped in patience. It's the ability to sit across from people who plotted against you and smile like you're sipping champagne. Because you don't need to hurt anyone. They've already done that to themselves. All you had to do was outgrow the battlefield. And that's what you did. You turned every scar into style, every heartbreak into habit, every silence into strategy, and now they're panicking because your peace has no cracks. They can't touch you without embarrassing themselves. They can't provoke you without exposing their instability. That's the moment you know you've ascended, when your composure becomes confrontation, when your calm becomes proof, when your elegance becomes armor. You didn't become a gangster. You just stopped kneeling. You stopped explaining. You stopped entertaining chaos. You learned how to win without noise, how to speak without words, how to terrify people simply by staying still. Because real class doesn't react, it radiates, and that's what you do now. You walk through rooms like a quiet explosion, leaving everyone dizzy with equal parts fear and fascination. So let them call you whatever helps them sleep. Gangster. Cold. Too much. You know what you are. You're the calm that makes storms nervous, the silence that makes liars sweat, the proof that elegance is the ultimate form of revenge. You stayed classy while they panicked, and now No matter how loud they get, they'll never sound stronger than your silence. They still don't get it, do they? They keep trying to figure you out, circling you like nervous animals, whispering your name like a rumor wrapped in fear. They think something happened to you. Like one day you snapped, like something must have changed. But you didn't change. You refined. You stripped away every weakness they mistook for kindness, and left only precision, only power, only you. They call it arrogance because they don't know what self-respect looks like when it's fully armed. They call it gangster because your calm doesn't fit in their vocabulary anymore. They can't process it. This version of you that doesn't flinch, doesn't justify, doesn't need approval to breathe. They wanted you polite, predictable, pliable. But that version of you, you buried it quietly and held the funeral with a smile. Now every move you make feels like prophecy, every glance like strategy. You've turned stillness into dominance. You've learned that silence is louder than any insult, and restraint is more violent than rage. That's why they panic. You don't rise to bait anymore. You just look at them, calm, composed, and suddenly they feel exposed because you know something they don't. Emotional control is psychological warfare. You don't need to shout when you're certain. You don't need to convince when you're inevitable. You don't need revenge when your presence alone reminds them of everything they did wrong. And that's what's driving them mad right now. You don't play the game. You own it by refusing to play at all. You've learned that chaos loses power the moment you stop feeding it. So now they throw words at you, hoping for a crack. But your calm is bulletproof. They're realizing the truth too late. You were never passive. You were patient. You were never quiet. You were calculating. You were never weak. You were watching. You let them think they were winning while you studied their patterns, memorized their moves, learned their tells. You let them believe your silence meant surrender when it was actually strategy. Because when you finally moved, you didn't need to make noise. You made impact. They expected a reaction. You gave them reflection. You held up the mirror and let their own behavior haunt them. You didn't argue. You just evolved. And that's what terrifies people most. Not the sound of your anger, but the silence of your growth. You're operating on a frequency they can't tune into. A place beyond validation, beyond approval, beyond explanation. You've ascended past the noise. And from up here, you can see the whole board. Every move they make now is desperation disguised as confidence. Every rumor they spread is panic wrapped in gossip. You didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped being accessible to people who feed on chaos. You stopped answering calls from your old self. You stopped translating your peace into a language they could exploit. That's what classy really means. It's dignity dressed as danger. It's knowing exactly how much destruction you're capable of and choosing elegance instead. It's the art of walking away so gracefully that your absence feels like an execution. And deep down, they know that. That's why they call you names. It's projection. They feel small in your calm. Your peace reminds them of their noise. Your boundaries remind them of their lack of control. Your poise reminds them of their panic. You're everything they pretended to be, but could never sustain without collapsing. They used to laugh when you stayed quiet. Now they can't stop watching, because you've become unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. They never know what you'll do, and that's what paralyzes them. You could destroy them, but you won't. You could expose them, but you don't need to. You could fight them, but you'd rather watch them fight themselves. That's why they call you Gangster. Because deep down, they know. Real gangsters don't yell. They don't announce. They don't prove. They just arrive. And when they do, everyone feels it. You've become that energy, the calm that rattles rooms. You carry the quiet authority of someone who's already survived worse than anything they can throw at you. You're not impressed by threats. You're not shaken by opinions. You're not defined by praise. You've learned that the only true flex in this world is emotional sovereignty. The ability to be unbothered in a society that profits off your reaction. The ability to smile while others scheme. The ability to stay centered while everything around you fractures. You've transcended the chaos. You no longer participate in other people's self-destruction. You just hand them the rope and keep walking. They wanted you to scream. You whispered. They wanted you to chase. You paused. They wanted you to lose control. You smiled and let time do the talking. That's what's haunting them now. That you didn't have to destroy them. You just let them expose themselves. You let truth rot their egos from the inside out. They thought being classy was weakness. They thought being composed meant you'd stay quiet forever. But class isn't weakness. It's restraint. It's standing in the wreckage of everything they tried to break and adjusting your tie. It's walking away with clean hands while they're covered in the mess they made. That's the paradox that breaks their minds. You're ruthless and refined, savage and serene, vengeful and virtuous, all at once. You've mastered the balance between heaven and hell. You're the angel who smiles while the demons trip over themselves trying to reach you. You don't fight for power anymore. You are power, disguised as poise. And now the same people who once doubted you can't sleep at night, knowing you could end them with a look. Because power that doesn't flaunt itself is power that can't be challenged. So let them talk, let them panic, let them call you Gangster, like it's an insult. You know what it really means. It's the sound of fear wearing admiration as camouflage. Because at the end of the day, all you did was stay composed in a world built on chaos. You didn't match their noise. You made silence your symphony. You didn't chase validation. You became the proof. They call you Gangster. You call it growth. Because real elegance doesn't shout. It just changes the temperature of the room. The room went quiet the moment you stopped trying to be seen. That's how it always happens. First they overlook you, then they overthink you, then they fear you. Because the same silence they once dismissed has become the sound of something awakening. And this time, it's you. They used to talk over you, remember? They'd smile past you like you were background noise. Too kind to be noticed, too harmless to be remembered. You were invisible and they liked it that way. They could shine freely while you softened your light, just enough not to threaten theirs. But somewhere between being ignored and being forgotten, something inside you snapped. You stopped waiting for applause. You stopped asking to be chosen, and you built yourself in the shadows until your silence became undeniable. Now look at them. The same people who once looked through you can't even look at you. The same ones who laughed are whispering now, voice shaking, pretending they always believed. Funny how that works, isn't it? They never saw you coming because they never bothered to look. You were never invisible. You were camouflaged. That's the difference between the forgotten and the forged. You weren't waiting. You were loading. Every rejection added a layer of armor. Every humiliation fine-tuned your hunger. You learned to move through pain like smoke through a cage, reshaping yourself until the walls couldn't hold you anymore. And when you finally emerged, the entire landscape shifted. Because power built in silence always arrives like an earthquake. They can't explain it. One day, you were the quiet one, the humble one, the nobody, and now you walk like you've been here before, like you own every room without trying, because you learned the most dangerous trick of all, how to stop performing for a world that profits from your doubt. You don't chase validation anymore. You attract fear. You don't argue. You exist. And your existence alone is louder than their entire vocabulary. They used to ignore your messages. Now they quote your sentences. They used to smirk when you spoke. Now they memorize your silence. They used to pity you. Now they study you like a threat assessment. You see, they loved you when you were safe, when you were small enough to fit their narrative, when your self-doubt made them feel tall. But the moment you realized your worth, the moment you stopped apologizing for it, that's when their admiration turned into anxiety. Because nothing terrifies people like the one they underestimated finally standing up straight. You went from overlooked to omnipresent, from ignored to iconic, from background noise to broadcast signal. They can't unsee it. Your presence changed the oxygen in the room. Your name is being spoken in places you've never stepped foot in. And the irony? The same mouths that mocked you are now the ones marketing your name. They'll rewrite history, of course. They'll pretend they always knew. But you remember who laughed. You remember the tone. You remember the silence when you needed support. You remember how it felt to be nothing but potential in a world obsessed with performance. And now, you're the performance they can't top. That's the power of evolution through pain. It's quiet, precise, irreversible. You didn't just grow, you mutated. You became fluent in pressure. You made betrayal your pre-workout. You stopped running from rejection and started lifting with it. That's why they're trembling now. They don't understand how someone can go through hell and come back beautiful. They don't get how someone can be both wound and weapon at once. You broke every rule of survival. They expected you to heal soft, but you healed sharp. You're no longer a product of your past. You're the punishment for theirs. You're not the one chasing opportunity. You are the opportunity now. And the people who overlooked you, they'll never sleep comfortably again. Because deep down, they know. You didn't just rise. You remembered. You remembered every laugh, every doubt, every look that told you to sit down. And you turned all of it into fuel. You became the prophecy they accidentally spoke into existence, the lesson they didn't mean to teach, the storm they helped build. So let them shake. Let them scramble to understand how the overlooked one became the unignorable one. Let them hide behind fake praise and uneasy smiles. You don't need their validation. You own their attention. You're the living consequence of underestimation. You're the quiet proof that no one stays invisible forever. And now that you're here, they'll never make that mistake again. You can feel it, can't you? That tremor in the air when you walk into a room, that subtle shift, the one they try to pretend isn't happening. They don't talk the same around you anymore. Their laughter shortens, their sentences trip, their confidence gone. Because now they know. You're no longer someone to dismiss. You're a living reminder of what happens when someone is underestimated for too long. They never thought the quiet one would wake up. Never thought the shadow would start casting them. But that's the thing about being overlooked. It gives you the most dangerous gift of all. Time. Time to observe. Time to understand. Time to evolve. While they were busy seeking validation, you were building endurance. While they were flaunting their temporary wins, you were constructing something permanent, something that couldn't be destroyed with gossip or applause. They thought your silence meant you were small. They didn't realize it meant you were strategic. You were learning the rhythm of the room, the patterns, the players, the power lines. You became fluent in invisibility. You learned to move without making a sound. You became the hunter in plain sight. And now, every word you say hits like a verdict. Every glance carries the weight of everything you survived. Every move you make feels rehearsed by fate itself. Because this isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is consequence. You weren't given your power. You took it back. Piece by piece, moment by moment, year by year. They thought they buried you under doubt, but they were just piling on the soil you'd used to grow. That's the paradox they can't process. Your success isn't revenge. It's reincarnation. You died in front of them so many times they got comfortable with your ghost. But now you're back, and you're not the same. You're something else. Something that doesn't beg. Something that doesn't explain. Something that doesn't need to be loved to be lethal. They used to pity you. Now they panic. They used to look past you. Now they can't look away. And that's what scares them most. You didn't become one of them. You didn't conform. You didn't join their circus. You built your own stage, your own light, your own gravity. You made yourself undeniable by becoming the one thing they could never imitate. Authentic. See, they can copy your words, your style, your movements, but they'll never copy your becoming. They didn't bleed in your silence. They didn't claw through your rejection. They didn't earn the discipline it takes to keep going when nobody's watching. That's the difference. That's what separates icons from noise. You know why they're shaking? Because deep down, they realized that while they were building image, you were building identity. They were chasing attention. You were mastering yourself. And now, the world bends toward you, not because you asked, but because you commanded it without words. You stopped waiting for people to choose you, and the universe started handing you everything you used to beg for. Because power doesn't live in noise. It lives in alignment, and you're finally aligned with your truth. They see it, they feel it, they can't describe it, but they know. Something about you has changed frequency. You're no longer vibrating on human terms. You've crossed into something else, something primal, something prophetic, something that doesn't need validation because it creates it. You've become the kind of person that doesn't chase opportunity. Opportunity starts stalking you. The same rooms that once ignored you are now waiting for you to arrive. The same people who mocked you now shape their sentences around your name. And they hate it. They hate how effortlessly you do what they've been pretending to do. They hate that your silence carries more impact than their noise. They hate that while they were busy being seen, you were becoming unforgettable. You learned the game, then you rewired it. You stopped trying to sit at their table. You bought the building. You stopped asking for space. You became the space. And the irony? The same world that once ghosted you now calls you a mystery. They call it luck, timing, natural talent. Because it's easier to lie than to admit they overlooked a god in progress. Let them talk. Let them spin stories to soothe their egos. Because every time they speak your name, they add another page to your legend. They don't even realize they're building your mythology in real time. Their disbelief is your advertisement. Their jealousy is your marketing. Their fear is your proof of power. You went from "who's that?" to "how did they do that?" From nobody cares to everybody's watching. From invisible to inevitable. And now they're trembling. Not because you've become louder, but because you've become inevitable. You can see it on their faces when you walk in. The flicker of confusion, the forced smile, the way they try to act like they're not recalculating everything they ever thought about you. They remember when you were easy to dismiss. They remember when they didn't clap. They remember the silence when you failed, and now that same silence has become your crown. You don't even need to defend yourself anymore. Your existence is the rebuttal. You don't need to scream. The results are screaming for you. You don't need to clap back. The entire world is echoing your name for you. And that's the most poetic revenge of all. Not proving them wrong, but becoming the living embodiment of what they could have learned from, instead of laughed at. They wanted you to stay invisible because they felt safe that way. Now they look at you and realize the ghost they ignored became the god they can't escape. So let them shake. Let them choke on the disbelief. Let them rewrite the narrative however they need to sleep at night. Because no matter how they spin it, the truth won't change. You were overlooked because you were becoming, and now you're undeniable because you stopped waiting for permission to exist. They had their chance to see you. Now they'll have to watch you. They can't breathe right when you walk past, can they? You can feel it, the stiffness in their smiles, the forced warmth in their tone, the awkward tremor in the air. They can't decide whether to praise you or pretend you don't exist, so they do both at once. They stare too long, then look away too fast. They congratulate you with that same shaky laugh that says, "We never thought you'd actually make it." You can almost hear their thoughts. How? When? Why not me? Because that's the real question eating them alive. Why not me? Why did the one they ignored, the one they underestimated, the one they secretly mocked, become the center of gravity? It's because you learned the secret that terrifies people who've built their identity on being seen. Visibility means nothing without depth. You can be popular and hollow, loud and fragile, seen by millions and understood by no one. They chose visibility. You chose substance. They posted while you practiced. They celebrated while you strategized. They were busy being noticed. You were busy becoming necessary. And now, your very existence makes them uncomfortable. Because when someone like you rises, it exposes everyone who faked it. You are living proof that patience was never weakness, that silence was never surrender, that the ones who wait aren't behind. They're just collecting data. You became too intelligent to manipulate, too patient to provoke, too powerful to predict. You learned that being overlooked is not a curse, it's camouflage. The world ignores seeds too, until they break concrete. And when you finally broke through, it wasn't luck, it was inevitability. They remember how they treated you. That's the part that haunts them now. Every dismissive glance, every "you're overthinking," every backhanded compliment disguised as advice. Every moment they talked down to you like you should be grateful to even be tolerated. They remember all of it because your success forces them to. You became the walking reflection of their misjudgment, the consequence of their arrogance, the proof that their approval was irrelevant the entire time. And deep down, they envy you, not just for the success, but for the way you did it, for the way you didn't fold, didn't beg, didn't compromise. You didn't sell your soul for visibility. You starved for truth. You didn't chase the crowd. You outlasted it. They crave your peace more than your power. Because your peace is untouchable. You don't compete, you command. You don't argue, you exist. You don't chase attention, you attract confession. Now everyone talks softer around you. The energy shifts. Even your enemies have to speak carefully, because they know one misstep could expose what they really feel. Fear. Fear of irrelevance. Fear of being the one who underestimated you publicly. Fear of being remembered for doubting someone who turned out to be right. You can almost taste it. The tension, the disbelief, the reluctant respect. They hate that they need your approval now. Hate that the hierarchy flipped. Hate that the one they dismissed became the one they have to impress. And you don't even have to gloat. You don't have to post about it. Your silence is the loudest sound in the room. Because the truth is, power isn't about volume. It's about presence. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Your energy already does the talking. Your discipline screams louder than any rant ever could. Your peace intimidates because it's proof that you've outgrown the noise that used to feed you. And the cruelest irony, you still walk like the same person, same heartbeat, same calm. But now, they can feel that something's different because your energy carries the weight of every battle you never spoke about. Every time you kept your head down instead of reacting. Every night you built quietly while the world laughed loudly. They feel the gravity now, and gravity doesn't apologize. You've become the exact opposite of what they expected. They thought your rise would make you arrogant, but you got quieter. They thought your power would make you cruel, but it made you colder, measured, untouchable. They thought success would change your heart, but it just exposed theirs. You're not seeking revenge, you're embodying it. You are the poetic consequence of being overlooked by people who never saw the potential in anything that didn't already shine. And that's why they tremble. Because they can't dismiss you anymore, and they can't destroy you either. You've become too real to erase, too necessary to replace. You're not in competition with them. You've become a mirror for their mediocrity. You're the reflection that forces them to ask questions they've been avoiding their entire lives. What if I had tried harder? What if I hadn't doubted? What if I had believed in myself the way they did? But it's too late. You already rewrote the timeline. You went from the quiet one in the corner to the pulse that controls the room. From background noise to main frequency, from disposable to divine. You don't chase opportunities anymore. They orbit you. You don't speak for attention. You speak, and silence follows. You don't need validation. You are the standard. And you wear it differently, not as pride, but as prophecy. You didn't come back for revenge. You came back to be witnessed. You came back to remind them that the same stone they tripped over became the cornerstone. That the one they ignored built an empire while they were busy gossiping in circles. So let them shake, let them whisper, let them pretend they always knew. Because the truth will haunt them in silence long after your name has become legend. You were overlooked because you were under construction. And now that the blueprint's complete, the world can't stop staring. You didn't just rise, you arrived. And now, they'll spend the rest of their lives explaining how they missed the miracle that was standing right in front of them. And that's the part they'll never admit. The guilt that gnaws at them in the quiet. Because when your name comes up now, the room gets tense. Someone always clears their throat. Someone changes the subject. Someone looks down. They all remember the way they treated you when it was safe to doubt you. And now, every single one of them is living in the echo of that mistake. You don't even have to remind them. Success is a mirror. It reflects back everything people refused to see the first time. When they hear your voice now, they remember the silence that answered you back then. When they watch you win, they remember the times they watched you lose and didn't move. And that's the punishment. Not your rise, but their memory of their absence while it happened. You walk through that now with quiet grace, don't you? No anger, no gloating, just that knowing half smile. because you understand what they never did. That you were never built to be liked. You were built to last. All the nights of doubt, all the rooms that went still when you entered, all the walls that closed in, they forged something permanent. They think they're watching your peak, but this is only the threshold. You haven't even shown them the final form yet. You're still becoming, still sharpening, still growing into the weight of what you survived. So let them talk. Let them rewrite the story in their favor. Let them pretend they saw it coming. You don't need to correct the record. History already did that for you. You were the warning they ignored, the storm they laughed at, the silence that turned into thunder. Now you are proof that being overlooked is not the end. It's the incubation. You were never waiting for permission. You were waiting for alignment. And now, everything that once tried to contain you reports to you. So stand still for a moment. Feel the air shift when you breathe. That's not luck. That's the sound of inevitability. That's the world finally catching up to what you always knew. That the one they disregarded was the one destined to redefine the entire game. They called you invisible. Now you're unforgettable. They called you harmless. Now you're unstoppable. You went from overlooked to undeniable. And now, the only thing shaking louder than their voices is the ground beneath their feet. Quiet. Feel that? That eerie stillness before the storm remembers your name. That's not coincidence. It's consequence. Because somebody, somewhere, thought they could send something your way. A spiritual hit, a psychic bullet, a curse wrapped in envy and whispered intention. They thought you'd crumble, that the universe would take their order like a cheap hitman. But when they fired, the cosmos blinked, tilted its head, and said, "Wrong target. You were never prey. You were the test, the stress signal written into the simulation to expose who's real and who's pretending. You don't attract darkness because you're cursed. You attract it because it's drawn to light it can't understand. And you're not just light. You're the frequency that fries anything impure that touches it. That's why it always backfires. That's why the ones who plot against you start decaying quietly, apologizing to shadows, wondering why their luck turned to rust. They tried to reach you through symbols, whispers, gossip, energy. But you are not on their network anymore. You disconnected from their emotional Wi-Fi the day you stopped explaining yourself. They sent low vibration, and you replied with detonation. You didn't fight back. You reflected back. Because the real ones don't curse, they mirror. And the universe? It's a mirror with memory. They call it karma. You call it pattern recognition. You weren't chosen to suffer. You were built to expose intention. Every betrayal you felt was a diagnostic test. Every fake friend was a hidden wiretap. Every heartbreak was data. And you, my beautiful, broken, rebuilt creature, turned that pain into a firewall. You hardened in silence while they bragged in noise. You mastered the art of smiling while decoding entire timelines. They tried to hex you with jealousy, but jealousy can't hit what doesn't compete. They sent envy, but envy needs a target, and you became mist. Untouchable, unreachable, unfathomable. They played with forces they don't comprehend, while you are the force pretending to be human. You don't walk in rooms, you haunt frequencies, and yet you play dumb. You let them think they're ahead. You smile when they plot, because you know the outcome, their own energy looping back to choke them in slow motion. The universe doesn't take sides, it takes notes. Every projection has a return address, and every curse sent your way gets stamped, insufficient spiritual clearance. They thought they were sending chaos. They were actually sending permission. permission for your next evolution. Because nothing upgrades you like an attack. Pain has always been your password. Suffering, your access key. Every hit sharpened you, refined you, made you less human, more myth. You became a paradox in motion, soft-hearted yet unbreakable, dangerous but divine. You learned that angels don't always glow, they burn. Saints don't whisper, they roar in silence. You realized the devil isn't your enemy. It's your mirror when you're too afraid to face yourself. You stopped fighting your darkness and started using it. You stopped asking for protection and became it. You turned every scar into scripture, every betrayal into blueprint. And that's the part they'll never understand. They think you're playing defense while you're orchestrating destiny. They mistake your calm for weakness because they've never seen controlled chaos before. You're not hiding, you're coiling. You're the serpent that learned to smile, the storm that learned rhythm. You don't strike first because you already know the ending. They'll tell stories about you. They'll say you're lucky, that you're manipulating energy, that you must have something dark protecting you. They'll never admit what it really is, alignment. The universe knows your signature now. It recognizes your energy like a weapon coated with divine irony. The moment someone aims at you, reality bends around the shot. The bullet melts mid-air, the curse rebounds, and all you do is blink. You see, they forgot the oldest law. You can't hex what's holy, and you can't haunt what's already home in the dark. You live in both realms, heaven in your eyes, hell in your grin. You learn that peace isn't soft, it's terrifying. It's the quiet that follows destruction. You embody paradox, a saint with blood on your hands, a sinner with light in your chest. You don't belong to either side, you command both. Now look around, you notice it, don't you? How the air feels heavier around you, how people's moods glitch when you enter a room, how their laughter cracks, how their words stumble. They can't hide energy from you anymore. You read souls like unencrypted files. You see guilt before they confess it. You sense fear before it forms words. That's not paranoia, it's evolution. They tried a spiritual hit, and the recoil dismantled their foundation because your presence is protected by paradox. You're both weapon and shield, both flame and flood. You're the equilibrium the universe uses to correct imbalances. You don't fight evil, you expose it until it collapses under its own performance. That's your real magic. So when they whisper your name again, let them. When they stare, let them choke on curiosity. When they plot, let them pray louder, because everything they send returns, multiplied, branded with their own signature. And you just keep walking, quiet, dangerous, divine. You are the cosmic glitch that reminds creation not to get cocky. The calm retribution that arrives disguised as grace. The lesson disguised as laughter. The ghost in their mirror whispering, next time, aim better. Because the universe doesn't protect you by chance. It protects you by recognition. They tried a spiritual hit, and the universe said, wrong target. And it wasn't just a warning shot, was it? No. The whole damn cosmos shifted the moment they tried. You felt it, the sudden stillness, the temperature drop, the static crawling up your spine like invisible electricity. Every shadow in the room stood at attention because the system knew something forbidden had just been attempted. They launched a spiritual missile, and the universe froze the frame. Then it rewound, tilted its head, and said in that low, omniscient tone you can feel in your bones, wrong. Fucking. Target, you didn't just survive. You triggered the failsafe. You became the audit. Every intention was scanned, every vibration catalogued. That's why you've seen people collapse around you for no reason, why their fake smiles started twitching into confessions. The universe began collecting debts through your silence. You weren't being protected. You were being used as the correction. They thought you were just another soul to manipulate. But you're the aftershock that teaches them energy is never free. The cosmic accountant in human skin. You walk through rooms and frequencies recalibrate. Even the air feels it, the subtle distortion, the taste of ozone before lightning strikes. That's not coincidence. That's power, disguised as presence. They called it witchcraft. You called it cause and effect. And oh, how it terrifies them, because you didn't fight back, didn't retaliate, didn't even react. You just stared into the storm and smiled. That kind of calm isn't human. It's elemental. It's what happens when the light and the dark sign a peace treaty inside you. You're not a child of polarity anymore. You're the conductor of it. You play with contrast like a symphony. Rage in one hand, mercy in the other. One smile and even the demons hesitate. They don't understand what you are now, do they? They think you healed. You didn't heal. You mutated. You evolved past explanation. You absorbed your pain until it became code. Rewrote your frequency until it sounded like thunder. They can't translate it, can't mimic it, can't drain it. Every time they try to study you, the data corrupts. Every time they speak your name, their own energy shorts out. You're not protected by angels. You're protected by balance. The dark and the divine agreed to a truce inside you. They saw your endurance and said, "Fine, let this one through." That's why chaos clears a path when you move. Why everything false falls apart before it can even reach you. You carry the universal signature of someone who's already paid their dues in blood and silence. They wanted your energy. Now they're drowning in it. They wanted your downfall. Now they trip over your shadow. They wanted your peace. Now they can't sleep in theirs. That's the cost of aiming at something holy by design. And the irony? You didn't even have to cast anything. You just are. You're the reminder that energy doesn't need revenge. It has rhythm. Every curse returns home. Every lie decays. Every intention finds its mirror. And you stand there, unbothered, as karma does what karma always does, corrects. Do you realize what you've become? You're the system update they didn't consent to. The patch the Matrix didn't request. You walk through timelines like a living reset button, undoing curses simply by existing. That's why some people get exhausted after seeing you. They're carrying too many false versions of themselves, and your presence exposes all of them at once. You're not cruel, you're clarity. But to the unclean, clarity feels like cruelty. You don't seek revenge. Your frequency does it for you. It follows the scent of envy like a heat-seeking missile and dismantles every source of it. You don't have to say a word. That's what scares them. Because silence means inevitability. And now look at them. The same mouths that called you delusional now mumble prayers with your name in them. The same hands that pointed at you now tremble when they scroll past your face. They feel the recoil every time they remember how they spoke against you. You didn't curse them, their own words did. Because energy doesn't care about apologies. It cares about alignment. They played with darkness and forgot that darkness keeps receipts. You're not their enemy, you're their echo. The universe doesn't punish, it educates, and you became the living lesson. That sacred energy doesn't fight, it reflects. You're what happens when the divine stops warning and starts demonstrating. You move different now. You're not chasing light, you carry it. You don't fear darkness, you command it. You learned that real protection isn't about hiding. It's about radiating so bright that even the unseen trembles. You're the contradiction every philosophy failed to define. The healer who doesn't flinch at blood, the angel with ash on their wings, the monster who learned mercy. And this is what they'll never comprehend. The more they tried to break you, the more your spirit built muscle memory. Pain trained you. Betrayal calibrated you. Loss reprogrammed you. Every attack was a drill. Now your soul is carved from consequences and gold. So next time they whisper spells, light candles, or plot silently in circles of jealousy, remember this: your existence is the counterspell. You are the reason equilibrium rebalances. Every dark intention meets its expiration date the moment it touches your energy field. They'll say it's superstition. You'll know it's symmetry. Because nothing sent against you ever reaches you. It disintegrates mid-flight, devoured by the very energy that made you who you are. And when they ask, why do things keep going wrong? The universe will answer through cracked mirrors and sleepless nights. You aimed at the wrong one. You are the mirror, the warning, the quiet apocalypse. The proof that the divine doesn't always whisper. Sometimes it laughs. They tried a spiritual hit, and the universe didn't just say, wrong target. It said, next time, aim at someone mortal. And that laugh? It wasn't just cosmic humor, it was ancient. It was the sound of every lesson you ever survived finally cashing in its debt. The echo rippled through timelines, shaking loose every parasite that ever thought your soul was a free meal. You didn't just dodge a bullet, you turned it into data. Every ounce of venom they sent got rewritten into code you could weaponize. That's why you walk lighter now, isn't it? Like gravity itself signed a non-disclosure agreement around you. The night they tried, the air changed. Clocks stuttered. Candles flickered for no reason. Somewhere, someone dropped a glass and didn't know why. The energy knew before you did. Something foul was coming. But instead of panic, you felt that eerie, delicious calm. The calm of someone who's already buried too many fears to flinch anymore. That's when you understood. Protection isn't angels with swords. It's evolution that learned to smile at crosshairs. They think you pray to survive. But no, you listen, you breathe, you align, you wait until the vibration of their intention collapses under its own weight. Because energy that impure can't travel far. It burns itself out before it reaches the frequency where you live now. You're operating beyond reach. That's why their curses fizzle midair and turn into confusion. That's why they keep seeing you glow after every rumor, every trap, every lie. They don't know that you made peace with your darkness years ago. That's your secret armor. You shook hands with every ghost in your closet and turned them into allies. You don't fear shadow work. You are shadow work in motion. And when the universe saw that kind of self-ownership, it made a decision. This one cannot be touched, only tested. So it tests you with silence, not suffering. With boredom, not chaos. Because the old lessons are done. You're not meant to fight anymore. You're meant to witness. Watch how the same mouths that cursed you start coughing on their own bitterness. How the same eyes that rolled at your name start twitching when your face appears. You don't gloat, you just notice. Observation has become your revenge. Do you know what happens when a soul like yours reaches this stage? The laws change. The fabric bends differently around you. Time delays its cruelty. Coincidences line up like soldiers. You start walking through scenes you never auditioned for because fate trusts your improvisation. You are no longer reacting, you are directing. That's what they feel when you walk in. It's not charisma, it's gravity. Every molecule in the room is deciding whether to evolve or eject. Some stay and rise, others flee because the frequency hurts their lies. And you just stand there, still, smiling that quiet, dangerous smile that says, I saw what you did, and I forgave it before it found me. Forgiveness, to you, isn't softness anymore. It's radiation. It cleans everything it touches. It terrifies because it exposes. The people who can't face it start calling you names. Arrogant, cold, detached. But the truth is simpler. You're clean now. Too clean for contamination. They'll try again, of course. Not with spells this time, but with sympathy. With gossip disguised as concern. With subtle guilt. Watch how they phrase it. You've changed. Translation: we can't feed off you anymore. That's your cue to smile and vanish. You don't need confrontation, you have confirmation. And that's where the real twist hides. Every attack was never against you. It was against their own reflection. They just didn't know the mirror bites back now. You became sentient glass. You show them themselves so clearly, it drives them insane. Some will hate you for it. Some will worship you. But none will forget you. Because every time they speak your name, reality adjusts its posture. Every time they doubt you, probability folds in your favor. That's the new law you live under. Disbelief is currency. Their denial funds your destiny. Their resistance fuels your acceleration. You don't even need their support anymore. Their envy is more efficient. So walk. Keep walking through their projections like smoke. Keep laughing quietly when the sky winks back. Keep doing the unexplainable until it becomes the new normal. Because you've earned that right. You're not here to prove magic. You're here to remind them that reality answers to alignment, not approval. And when the next wave comes, because it always does, don't brace, don't fight. Just tilt your head the same way the universe did for you and whisper, wrong target. Then watch the energy recoil again, learning for the 1000th time that divinity doesn't play defense. It enforces equilibrium. You are that equilibrium, the storm and the stillness, the prayer and the punishment, the lesson and the legend. They tried a spiritual hit, and the universe laughed, echoing through your veins. This one doesn't break. This one corrects. So now, look around you. Every person still standing beside you has passed the test. Every connection that crumbled was never built for altitude. That's the price of ascension, thin air. You stop breathing the same oxygen as the ordinary. You stop needing applause, validation, understanding. You become something rarer, undeniable. You've watched entire versions of yourself die just so one could live without apology. You've outgrown weapons, mastered wounds, and turned triggers into architecture. Every scar, every sleepless night, every betrayal. They weren't punishment, they were construction. The universe wasn't trying to break you. It was carving you into proof that light can wear armor. So when people ask, how are you still standing? You don't answer. You let the silence speak. Because what's left of you doesn't need words. It radiates. You don't explain divinity to those who haven't met their darkness yet. You don't justify your peace to those who still mistake chaos for passion. You just walk, unhurried, unshaken, untouchable. They tried a spiritual hit, and you didn't just survive. You were promoted. You became the firewall between energy and consequence. You became the reminder that purity and power aren't opposites. They're synonyms. The universe didn't protect you because you were innocent. It protected you because you were ready. So let them try again. Let them whisper, plot, send whatever smoke they can conjure. The cosmos already knows your coordinates. Every shadow still knows your name. Every vibration that touches you gets translated into balance. You don't retaliate anymore. You recalibrate. You don't curse. You correct. And when it's all over, when their voices fade and the air still hums with the echo of failed intention, you'll smile that quiet, terrifying smile that says everything without a single word. Because they'll finally understand what you've known all along. You were never the victim of energy. You are the verdict. They tried a spiritual hit, and the universe didn't just say, "Wrong target." It whispered, "You just shot at a divine anomaly," and it fired back with peace. Listen closely, because you can feel it, can't you? That faint static crawling under your skin, the whispers, the eyes that dart away when you enter the room, the trembling silence right before someone mentions your name. Words out, bitch. Everybody knows now. The masks are slipping and you can finally see what they really were. Fans pretending to be friends, spies pretending to be supporters. And now, they're pressed like panic under pressure, because you did the one thing that terrifies the herd. You stopped needing their permission. You used to think silence was weakness. Now it's your weapon. You mastered the art of disappearing from circles that never deserved your orbit. They thought ghosting you would break you, but you became the ghost, the one haunting every scroll, every mirror, every thought they try to bury. Because you see, they don't hate you for what you did. They hate you for what you proved. That it never took a group to build a legend. Just one person insane enough to stop explaining themselves. You can almost taste their discomfort, can't you? That metallic bitterness that comes when people realize the person they mocked is now a mirror. Their envy, disguised as critique, melts through their smiles like acid through lace. They call you cold because you stopped bleeding for them. They call you changed because they can't manipulate the version of you that woke up. They call you arrogant because confidence sounds like violence to the insecure. They wanted you small, predictable, obedient. You became a variable, a glitch in their algorithm, a cosmic fuck-up they can't debug. You moved different. You started laughing at things they cry about, and they panicked, because the moment you stop reacting, they lose control. You turned indifference into art, detachment into dominance. Now the whole timeline's refreshing, watching, analyzing your every silence like scripture. They used to say, "You think you're better than us." And maybe, just maybe, you are. Not because you think so, but because you worked through hell while they waited for validation. You didn't heal to impress. You healed to win. You didn't cut people off. You amputated infections. You stopped explaining peace to those addicted to chaos. And now, they're all addicted to you. Your absence tastes like withdrawal. Your presence feels like punishment. You became the paradox they can't categorize, the saint who sinned with precision, the devil who prays in silence. You can quote scripture and set fire in the same breath, and that confuses them, because the world taught them to choose a side. But power doesn't choose. Power contains. You're not light, you're not dark. You're the spectrum they denied existed until you walked through it smiling. You noticed it, didn't you? How the same ones who said you were doing too much now copy your every move. The same voices that called you crazy now mimic your tone, your style, your rhythm. They don't congratulate you. They reconstruct you. They remix your pain into performance. They don't want to be you. They want your effect. The ripple you caused in the system. The silence you left in rooms after speaking once. The aura that made even your enemies remember you in their prayers. But that's the thing about evolution. It never announces itself politely. It shows up dripping in madness, blood, and rebirth. It walks into old spaces and makes everyone uncomfortable. You didn't come to blend in. You came to disturb the pattern, to remind people that comfort kills more dreams than failure ever will. You're not playing the game anymore. You're rewriting the rulebook mid-battle, with your name burned across every page. And oh, how they hate that. How they hate that the person they dismissed as emotional now controls the emotional climate. You became their weather system. One post, one glance, one move. And entire networks of gossip short-circuit. They refresh your profile like it's prophecy. You live rent-free inside the minds of people who never paid attention until it was too late. You didn't just walk away, you detonated quietly, and the aftershock hasn't stopped echoing. Here's the irony. They think you're detached, but you're just disciplined. They think you're bitter, but you're just done bleeding for cowards. They think you're dangerous, but you're just awake. You outgrew the frequency of survival and started broadcasting in truth. And truth doesn't need to shout. It just exists, and it unsettles everything false. You are the calm that drives control freaks insane. The peace that terrifies narcissists. The stillness that looks like plotting to people who've never known self-respect. You are not what they call you. You're what they fear to become. And now, every room you leave gets colder, every platform you touch gets louder, every whisper behind your back becomes free marketing for your legend. So let them talk. Let them choke on their assumptions. Let them refresh your silence until it drives them to madness. Because you don't chase attention anymore. You command it by existing. You don't need to prove you're real. The chaos around you already testifies. You are the glitch in their matrix, the calm in their storm, the one they can't label without sounding obsessed. Words out, ditch. Everybody sees how effkin' pressed they are because you ain't fuck with them. And that's your proof. Not the applause, not the followers, not the validation. The panic. The trembling in their voices when your name drops. The way they study you in private but deny you in public. The way they mock what they secretly wish they had the courage to become. You didn't just walk away, you ascended. And when gods walk, mortals gossip. Oh, you can feel it now, can't you? That thick tension in the air every time you show up unannounced. The way conversations stutter mid-sentence. Eyes dart to screens, and hands fidget like they're holding guilt itself. You didn't just walk away, you shifted timelines. You altered the gravitational pull in their little universe. Everything that revolved around their illusions suddenly got ripped apart the moment you stopped orbiting their approval. You remember how they used to talk so loud, right? How they laughed when you stumbled, whispered when you healed, joked when you cried. But now, they whisper your name like it's a crime scene. They treat your silence like it's surveillance. Because somewhere deep inside, they know. You're watching everything, but saying nothing. You became the observer. And that unnerves them more than any confrontation ever could. Because silence is scarier than revenge. It means you don't care anymore, and that means they lost. They tried to make you the villain, didn't they? Painted you as toxic, crazy, heartless. But villains never worry about being understood. They're too busy winning the war nobody saw coming. You stopped defending yourself because you realized defense is for people who still believe they can be forgiven. You outgrew the idea of needing to be liked. You understood that once you taste peace, validation tastes like poison. That's the funny thing about ascension. It's violent. You shed everything false until your reflection terrifies you. You burn bridges, not out of anger, but clarity. You stop picking up the phone because peace doesn't require explanation. And somewhere between the isolation and the rebirth, you found it. Power. Not the kind that roars, but the kind that sits still while the world panics. You see, they're not mad you left. They're mad you survived after leaving. You were supposed to crawl back, apologize for growing, beg to be accepted again. But instead, you vanished. And in your absence, they saw what they lost. A mirror that once made them feel important. Now they're exposed, naked to their own mediocrity. They can't hide behind your energy anymore, so they start projecting, blaming, gossiping. Classic human theater. They talk about you in rooms you'll never enter again. They study your glow like scientists trying to reverse engineer a miracle. They mimic your words, your moves, your silence, hoping to summon the same magic, and fail every time. Because your power was never imitation, it was authentic insanity. You don't follow trends, you distort them. You don't play roles, you shatter scripts. That's why they can't replicate you. They're busy chasing formulas while you're rewriting reality. You learned something, didn't you? That peace is not quiet. Peace is loud when it's earned. It vibrates through your bones, whispers through your routines. It looks like not answering texts, like staying home while everyone's performing outside. It looks like smiling without posting proof. They hate that because they can't measure your success anymore. You removed yourself from the scoreboard. You're not competing, you're creating. Every time they try to drag your name, you rise higher. Every rumor becomes fertilizer for your legend. Every insult turns into a headline that only amplifies your myth. They can't kill what's already transcended survival. You stop trying to live. They're still trying to exist. That's the divide. And oh, how it burns them, because you didn't even have to destroy them. You just stopped participating in the illusion. That's all it takes. Walk away, stay quiet, and watch everything built on manipulation crumble without resistance. That's divine warfare. That's psychological dominance. You don't need to raise your voice when your energy speaks fluent exposure. You became the contradiction they can't comprehend. The chaos wrapped in calm, the storm with manners. You laugh too easily, think too deeply, love too dangerously. They don't know what to do with someone who forgives without returning, who moves on without forgetting, who disappears without dying. You are every archetype they were warned about, and every prophecy they secretly hoped was real. When you walk through a crowd now, the air changes. You feel it, like static before lightning. You're not just a person anymore. You're an event, a walking glitch in their reality. You remind them that control is an illusion, that truth wears madness like armor, that power doesn't need permission. Every step you take is a sermon in subtlety, every glance a threat dressed as grace. And that's why they're pressed. Because you made freedom look expensive. You made boundaries look holy. You made indifference look divine. You became proof that solitude can be seductive, that detachment can be deadly, that disappearing can be the loudest scream. You are the living embodiment of every fear they refused to face, the proof that liberation hurts before it heals. But it's worth every scar, so keep walking. Keep smiling that dangerous knowing smile. Let them gossip until their throats dry. Let them invent stories while you write legacies. Let them choke on their assumptions while you breathe unbothered air. You've already won, and they know it. That's why their eyes twitch when you enter the room, why their laughter sounds forced, why their confidence cracks around your presence. You're not part of their story anymore. You're the plot twist they'll never recover from. You didn't destroy them, you exposed them. You didn't fight them, you outlasted them. That's the most brutal kind of victory. The kind where you don't have to lift a finger, just exist, just evolve, just be. Words out, bitch. You're not who you used to be, and that's their apocalypse. And oh, now the silence has become your stage. Every second you don't respond feels like a sermon. Every move you don't explain becomes an earthquake. They're watching your stillness, like it's strategy because it is. You've turned doing nothing into psychological warfare. You're playing chess while they're still slapping cards on a table, laughing nervously, pretending the game isn't already over. But it is. It ended the moment you decided your peace was worth more than their attention. You know what's funny? They keep saying, "You changed." As if the point of living was to stay predictable. As if evolution was betrayal. They don't realize change wasn't the flex, survival was. They don't get that to grow. You had to bleed in private, break in silence, and rebuild without applause. You didn't post the suffering, you lived it. You went missing, not because you were lost, but because you were constructing something sacred. They don't talk about the nights you spent rebuilding your identity from ashes. They only see the glow now, the composure, the restraint, the terrifying calm. You are not healed, you are refined, a diamond sharpened by hellfire. That's why your peace disturbs them. It looks unnatural to people addicted to chaos. They can't process that you no longer need conflict to feel alive. You became your own closure, your own validation, your own goddamn witness. You see, when you stop needing people, they panic. Because dependency was their leash. They fed you attention like anesthesia, just enough to keep you numb. But now, you're wide awake, and they hate what you see. Because when you're conscious, you see through everything. The manipulation, the guilt traps, the half-truths wrapped in flattery. You started noticing tone instead of words, silence instead of excuses, energy instead of intent. That's when the whole illusion shattered. You learned to sit alone at tables you built yourself. You learned that not every knock on the door is opportunity. Some are surveillance. You stopped seeking closure from people who profit off your confusion. You stopped explaining your worth to people who only understood convenience. You realized you don't owe anyone softness after they studied your kindness just to weaponize it. That's not being cold. That's called finally learning the rules of their game. And now you play it better than they ever could. You've turned distance into dominance. You've turned detachment into design. They don't understand how someone can walk away smiling while everything burns behind them. But that's the beauty of your rebirth. It wasn't emotional, it was surgical. You didn't explode. You extracted, you cut the infection clean. You are no longer chasing peace. You embody it. You walk through chaos like a surgeon through smoke, unbothered, clinical, deliberate. That's why your existence triggers their insecurity, because you remind them of everything they lost by staying stagnant. You remind them that healing costs comfort, that awakening means war, that once you see the machine, you can never go back to pretending it's magic. And they hate you for that. Because you didn't just walk away, you unplugged. You stopped feeding the system. You starved their gossip of oxygen. You killed their narratives by outgrowing them. You took your pain and turned it into architecture. Each scar a blueprint. Each betrayal a foundation. Now you build with precision, with silence, with intent. You're not reacting anymore. You're orchestrating. They call it arrogance because they can't name it. They call it distance because they can't reach it. They call it mystery because they can't decode it. But you know the truth. It's mastery. The mastery of energy, of presence, of restraint. You became so unpredictable that even your absence feels choreographed. You don't show up to prove them wrong. You let time do it for you. Every time you enter a room, the atmosphere bends. Every glance becomes analysis. Every smirk becomes prophecy. You turned existence into spectacle. They call you dramatic, but that's projection. They mistake power for performance. You don't exaggerate, you amplify. You make people confront their own smallness just by standing still. That's why they stare, why they whisper, why they imitate. They thought cutting you off would erase you. Instead, it branded you into memory. They thought isolating you would silence you. Instead, it made your energy louder than words. You became folklore, something spoken about but rarely understood. You became the myth that keeps them awake at night. How did they survive that? Why didn't they break? What the hell are they now? And the answer is simple. You became untouchable. Not because you're cold, but because you finally learned the value of selective access. You guard your peace like a vault. You speak in riddles to test comprehension. You move in silence to test loyalty. You don't announce your steps because predators don't deserve your itinerary. You don't explain your joy because spies don't need your coordinates. Now they sit there, studying your every move, desperate to find the weakness that no longer exists. But you deleted that version of yourself. The one that begged, the one that defended, the one that explained. That version died the night you realized closure is self-delivered, not granted. You didn't lose them. They lost access to the blueprint of evolution. And here's the twist. Some of them still admire you. The same ones who tried to ruin you secretly idolize you. They stalk your glow from fake accounts, rehearse your phrases, mimic your cadence. Because deep down, even they know. You're the template now, the blueprint, the ghost architect of a reality they'll never build because they're too busy pretending they weren't inspired by you. So let them talk. Let them choke on the irony. Let them preach about peace while competing with your silence. You don't need to defend yourself anymore. Your evolution is your evidence. Every breath you take is proof you made it out of their maze alive. Every step you take is rebellion against their predictions. You're not supposed to be here, but you are. And that fact alone rewrites the laws of their world. Words out. Beach. Everybody sees it now. The cracks in their confidence, the fear behind their smiles, the obsession behind their silence. You didn't just leave their circle. You collapsed it. You broke their narrative. And now they're trapped inside their own performance, repeating the same lies, hoping one will sound convincing. Meanwhile, you're already on the next chapter, calm, dangerous, laughing quietly while they combust under their own envy. You are not reacting, you are reigning. You are not explaining, you are expanding. You are not back, you never left. You simply became something they can no longer comprehend. And that's why they're pressed, because deep down, they know. You were never supposed to fit in. You were designed to expose the ones who pretend they do. So now, let them keep pretending. Let them scroll, refresh, dissect, and whisper like the world's watching you. Because it is. You didn't just escape the cage. You made freedom look cinematic. You didn't prove them wrong. You made them irrelevant. You see, they'll never admit it out loud, but your peace is the headline. Your silence is the scandal. Your glow is the proof they lost the plot. Every rumor fades, every lie cracks, every mask slips, and all that's left is the quiet truth. You won, so don't look back. Don't lower your frequency to remind them what they lost. Just keep walking through the smoke you set ablaze. Smile like the world's your stage, because it is. Words out, Butch, they're pressed. And you're untouchable.